General Brown, please.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Pablo, so much, General Merz, for welcoming me to Switzerland and being such a great host over the past couple of days. I appreciate the chance to enhance the relationship between our air forces and affirm our commitment to the U.S.-Switzerland bilateral defense relationship and regional security in Europe. Recent events underscore the importance of working together to strengthen our strategic partnerships in order to meet our shared security requirements. We cannot wait for a crisis. We must consistently collaborate so we're prepared for future crises. U.S. and Switzerland have over 50 years of proven partnership, and my visit signifies U.S. commitment to many more decades of integration and security cooperation. A key aspect of seamless cooperation, of course, is shared equipment. And the U.S. welcomes Switzerland's decision to procure the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. The United States Air Force is fully committed to this platform and its unmatched capabilities. With 14 countries, including 8 partners, 5 of which are in Europe, flying the F-35, the program is a multi-service, multinational effort that will dramatically increase cooperation between the U.S. and other F-35 nations. As Switzerland continues its Air 2030 procurement process, the U.S. remains committed to the principles of transparency. We're excited to collaborate further with our Swiss partners as they bring on the F-35 with a focus on the future. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Buongiorno, greci signori e signori. Good morning, miteinander. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the main purpose of the visit by General Brown, the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, was to review the cooperation between our two air forces. We look back to about 50 years of close cooperation. Remember the 70s when Switzerland procured 110 F-5 fighter aircraft. 20 years later, our today's Hornets, F-18s. And now we are at the beginning of a new era with the Patriot system and the F-35s. As you know, Switzerland's current assets on the ground, but also in the air, they reach quite soon the end of service life. That's why we have a really great necessity to replace those systems. And we are looking, of course, forward to continuing and even expanding the excellent cooperation with the US Air Force. Yesterday, so General Brown and his delegation arrived on Saturday. Yesterday we had a very charged agenda with a lot of briefings on the Swiss Air Force, but also on the future of the ground air forces, the cyber domain. General Brown visited the Chief of Armed Forces Switzerland and also Ambassador Pulley, the head of security policy of the Department of Defense. And today we visited Bayern Air Base, and now we are here with you, and unfortunately General has to leave quite soon. So we discussed, of course, the current and the future challenges for our two air forces, and especially the focus on introduction of F-35 in Switzerland. The support by United States Air Force and the Joint Program Office already during the evaluation phase, but especially now when we are about to prepare the introduction of these systems, is excellent. And I would like to thank you very much, you personally, but also to the whole delegation and the United States in general. We also exchanged the potential of cooperation within Europe, but because you know, the F-35 is the most European aircraft in Europe. We expect about 500 aircraft flying around 2030. You heard perhaps this morning that also Germany selected that aircraft. So we are embedded in a great family of F-35, and this brings potential of very close cooperation, not only with the United States, but also with many other European countries. Thank you very much, sir, that you visited us, that you took your time, that you set the priorities to visit Switzerland in these times of crisis and war, even in Europe. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Pablo. Well, let me start out with my comments were meant really to underscore the unique and very sound capabilities of the F-35. And what I would highlight is the context of my statements was based on how we were using the F-35 inside of the United States Air Force. And there's a time where we are flying, really overflying it and using in a environment in a part of the world where its capabilities really overmatched what it was required to do. We're in a much better place. And what I really think about is that for the F-35 is the F-35 is designed for the environment we see here in Europe. You think about current events, and the F-35 is designed for that type of environment. And you know, for the Swiss Air Force, I know they went through their process, but I also think the Swiss Air Force is going to be in the program at the right time. You think about, as Pablo highlighted, the number of European nations that fly the F-35 and the numbers of F-35s that will be in here. The increased capability of the F-35 will, and its you know, great capabilities, not only complement what the Swiss Air Force is going to do based on the briefs we received yesterday, but what also I see here in Europe as I engage with other air chiefs in the region that fly the F-35. And to include the United States Air Force that has F-35s just now being stationed in Europe. Well, I will tell you, not only for the F-35, but one of my responsibilities as a service chief is to drive down the cost to operate not only the F-35, but all of our aircraft. And as the United States Air Force and the U.S. is going to be the largest users of the F-35, and as I work to drive down the cost, not only doing it for the United States Air Force, I'm doing it for all of our partners, on behalf of all of our partners. And that's the aspect of where we work very close with the Joint Program Office to drive down those costs to the benefit of not just the U.S., but every nation that's flying the F-35. Well, when you look at the F-35 is the cornerstone of our fighter fleet. And right now, it's the second largest number of fighters we have inside the United States Air Force, behind the F-16. And what I fully expect is as a cornerstone, it will eventually be the largest number of fighter aircraft we have inside of our Air Force. And so I fully expect for the United States Air Force, the F-35, based on our model, it's going to fly for a number of decades with the United States Air Force. Well, I will just tell you the things that we've already done. We've already started basing F-35s in Europe, and then we brought additional F-35s into Europe at the beginning of this particular conflict that's ongoing in Europe. The thing I look at with the F-35, and not just the F-35, is what we're doing with many of our partners here in the region, is assurance of deterrence. And that's the aspect of the F-35, and being able to fly it in different parts of Europe with the other F-35 nations and the other aircraft. It's just a collaboration that we do naturally, and it's all part of the relationship we have with the Swiss Air Force, and we'll continue to have not only with the Swiss Air Force, but the other air forces here in Europe. Well, you know, yesterday we actually had the Land Component Commander spend a bit of time with us. Matter of fact, we sat next to me at lunch yesterday, and we also spent time in briefings. I think one of the key aspects that the F-35 provides, it's not only an airplane, but it's a sensor. And because it's a sensor, it's that information that comes off the F-35 that we push not just to the land component, but to really all the components that we work with from various services, but other nations as well. And that's the key part that I look at with the F-35. As far as close air support, it can do close air support, but it can do much more. And that aspect is what we don't want to do is that, you know, we want to actually get in a position we don't have to get the close air support with the F-35. But it does have that capability and capacity to do that. That's something we train to as well. And we do that very closely with our United States Army, but we do it with other armies from around the world where we fly the F-35. You know, we've not necessarily tested biofuel with the F-35. We've done it with other, as you described, we've done it with other aircraft. This is something we will, I'm sure we'll take a look at. You know, one of the other areas we are looking at from a research and development aspect is future propulsion for the F-35 that actually is more fuel efficient over time. So that's we do have some research and development that's ongoing there as well.
If I can amend, perhaps. So we, during the evaluation, we checked that point also because ecological aspects were important as well for us. And we noticed that the F-35 will be capable to use at least 50% of its fuel by sustainable aviation fuel in the future, perhaps even more.
Yeah, so I can't speak to the analysis that the Swiss Air Force did, but I will tell you, one of the things we're working on is to continue to drive down the cost. As you have more and more nations, fly and operate, that helps to drive down the cost, not just for the Swiss, but really for all the nations that are flying the F-35. Our program record for the F-35 is still 1736, excuse me, 1763. So that's where we're headed right now, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, once the Swiss buy the F-35, it's a Swiss aircraft, and Swiss armed forces own the data, and how they use the data, that's up to them. And if they want to share it with U.S. or other F-35 nations or other nations in any form, that's up to the Swiss government and the Swiss military. Well, I can't speak to the goal for Switzerland. I'll let General Merz speak to that. But not only I already addressed driving down the operational cost to operate, but it's also increasing the operational availability and the mission capable rate. And this is something we work on very closely with the Joint Program Office and also with our industry partners. And the more we fly the aircraft, the more we learn. I mean, I would say we're still, in some cases, early in this process, but it is something that we continue to watch the mission capable rates and the aircraft availability rise. And that's something I am focused on as the Air Force Chief of Staff, not just for the United States Air Force, but for every Air Force that is flying the F-35. I would say, very independent, but the aspect of being able to be able to still cooperate. And what we want to do really is, as each nation buys the F-35, it's up to them how they want to operate. But one of the things we do have is F-35 user groups. There's one in Europe, and we also have one in the Pacific, where we bring together F-35 nations, and to be able to talk about how to operate, how to maintain the F-35, and what we learn from each other. But the Swiss Air Force can be very independent on how they want to operate, and
if I may add, part of the 6 billion procurement package is a spare parts package. That's a requirement which was given by the government, that we can operate at least 6 months autonomously. So, and we will be able to handle the aircraft, maintain the aircraft on our own without any help from outside. So in case of the borders are closed, we must be able to maintain the flight service at least 6 months independently.
What I've been told is that Switzerland's timeline and I would say its place in line has already been solidified, and that's part of the planning as I've worked in information I have from the Joint Program Office. So I don't see that would change the fact that other nations are interested and they're going to procure the F-35 as well. Well, one of the things that as you think about Switzerland and its role here in Europe, but really around the world. And it's not just from the F-35 perspective, but the aspect of the F-35 is, the more nations that fly the F-35 and the more we're able to talk to each other about the F-35, not only does it build, in this case, the partnership and the relationship between the United States Air Force and the Swiss Air Force, but it's the other air forces here in Europe. And I would say also around the world. And I just say that from my experience of having, before I became Chief of Staff of the Air Force, I was the commander of Pacific Air Forces when I was working with the nations there in that part of the world that were flying the F-35. So it's an opportunity to continue to build the relationship, the long-term relationship that the Swiss Air Force and the U.S. Air Force have. Now, one of the things I really believe is a big Air Force like the United States Air Force can learn from smaller air forces. And that's the thing I enjoy about my opportunity to travel around the world as the Air Force Chief of Staff, but also in my previous assignments. Working with a number of air chiefs, and I learned a lot from some of the smaller air forces because they're smaller, they can do things maybe a bit faster than I can. I'd probably have to defer.
Yes, it's March 23, that's confirmed, March 23.